Hello everybody, it's Thursday the 4th of February and this is your art lesson for today. We are going to continue to look at mosaic art. We will first recap the history of mosaic art, which we did last week. Then we will look at how mosaic art is used today. So for today you will need paper and pencils. You might want to get other things like felt tips and other coloured paper, paint, natural resources that you might want to use for today's art activity. So let's recap what we learnt last week about mosaics. Mosaics have been found that show scenes of history as well as everyday Roman life. Mosaic floors were a statement of how wealthy and important you were. Poor people would not be able to afford them. The bigger and more detailed the mosaic, the more impressive. Romans used a hammer and a hardy to cut the stones to approximately 8 to 12 millimeters. A hardy, which is on the left, is like a chisel. This would be stuck into a block of wood. Some mosaics had pieces cut down to just 1 to 2 millimeters for very intricate patterns. This one that you can see is the Alexander mosaic that you can still see today in Pompeii, Italy. Here are some examples again with amazing detail. Just have a think, how long do you think this would have taken to make? Another example here, I think this would have taken probably maybe a year to do. Last week, if you remember, we looked at artists who are still using mosaics in their artwork, and one of those was Gaudi. We looked at Gaudi's artwork and how he uses his mosaic skills to create different artwork and different sculptures. And this was the dragon in Park Güell, made using the trencadis technique, which means it is made from broken pieces of tiles. This is the detail of the dragon's foot in Park Güell. You can see the detail of the pieces of tiles put together as if they were a jigsaw. Here again you can see the detail and intricacy used for trencadis. Again, it must have taken a very long time to piece this together. And again you can see some trencadis techniques on Gaudi's bench. Different coloured tiles, different shaped tiles used all the way through. I have actually sat on that bench in Barcelona. Even though it doesn't look it, it is actually quite comfortable and it has a great view looking over the city. We also looked about how Gaudi's inspiration came from shapes in nature, like the waves you would see in the oceans. The curved patterns in the shells as well. The height and the tallness of the trees, how they would have towered over, could have been an inspiration for Gaudi. Even things like mushrooms and fungi, we can remember, would have been used. And definitely we did see last week some of those inspirations used in his artwork. And he also created buildings, and again talked about the shapes used and what things we could see in his sculptures. Here you can see how shapes in nature again have been used to inspire Gaudi with his fixtures here for this lighting. And again, what shapes can you see here? And this was the view looking out from Park Güell if you sat on one of those benches. So for today's lesson, we are going to follow on from last week's lesson and look at how mosaics are used in artwork today. And by doing that, we are going to look at an artist called Invader. And this is Invader's artwork. And what he specialized in was creating mosaics using tiles, but using it from classic arcade games. So these ones are from Space Invaders. Here you can see he would create these pieces around the world. This one on the left is in Paris, and here you can see he's got some of his artwork in an art gallery, and you notice there that his face is a little bit blurry, where in actual fact he's holding up a picture of a blurry face in front of his. And why do you think he's got a blurry face? Why do you think he doesn't want anybody to see his face? So on the website, which you can visit by clicking on the link that will be on the web page, there's a little bit of information written by Invader about who he is and what he does. So the question was asked of him, who are you, Invader? Where do you come from? And his answer was this: I define myself as a UFA, an unidentified free artist. I chose Invader as my pseudonym, which is like a pretend name, and I always appear behind a mask. As such, I can visit my own exhibitions without any visitors knowing who I really am, even if I stand a few steps away from them. Since 1998, I have developed a large-scale project, code name Space Invaders. And if you click on the link on the website, you can click on this one, World Invasion. And here we have a map mainly of Europe, and where all these little red Space Invader pictures are, images, these are the cities in the countries where he has placed some of his artwork. And if you click on those, it will take you to photos of his artwork in those cities. And in Invader's artwork is actually in Manchester. And we're just going to look at a few pictures to start with. Can you spot where is Invader's artwork in this picture? Sometimes they're very big, sometimes they're very small. A lot of the times they're quite high up, so you have to look around to see them. Here you can see there is this one here, because sometimes he didn't always do Space Invaders from the classic game. Sometimes he created other images too. So we've managed to look at some different ones there that are around in Manchester, in the city that we live in. There's one final one. Can you spot it? So he creates Space Invader artwork, and that Space Invader comes from an original game. It's an arcade game that was created all the way back in 1978. Believe it or not, I wasn't even born then when this game was created. And it was a very, very simple arcade game where you were this green battleship at the bottom, and you could move just left and right. And slowly these Space Invaders came down, and you had to shoot and try and get as many of those Space Invaders as you can before they reach the bottom. People still create, however, their own versions of Space Invaders. There are many versions, and you can, if you wanted to, you could go on a place like Scratch and find Space Invaders games that people have made. And if you wanted to, if you're very good at Scratch, you could even have a go at making your own Space Invader game. Now, like I said before, Invader didn't always create Space Invader artwork. If he was inspired, he might have created something else. Like you can see here, we've got an R2-D2 from Star Wars. We've got Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader Invader artwork there that he created. There's a Snow White and a Sonic Hedgehog. So it wasn't always Space Invaders. Whatever inspired him or whatever he felt like doing, if he could do it as a mosaic, then he would create it. So, your challenge, your task for today is to create your own Invader mosaic piece. You can use different materials to create your mosaic. For example, paper and pencils, felt tips, ripped pieces of paper, newspaper. You might want to go outdoors and do something outdoors with some materials you can find. But it'd be great if you can, like you've been doing, take a photo and share what you have created. Now you might want to do a Space Invader art, or you might want to even challenge yourself a little bit and see if you can find some other classic arcade games and see if you can create an Invader mosaic from there. So for example, you might want to do this one, which is Pac-Man, this one Donkey Kong, and this one, my favorite, Mario Brothers. And also this one was a great one, Outrun this was called. So there are some different classic arcade games that you might want to try. And finally, as a tip, if you want to have a go at creating something different, might not want to do a Space Invader piece, you might want to look at Star Wars or some other film that you enjoy that you might want to use. What I would recommend would find an original picture of what it looked like beside you so that you can create your mosaic. That's what Invader would do. He would have the original picture next to him, followed by, and then he would create his own piece side by side so he could get his mosaic pieces in the right places. So good luck everybody with that. I really look forward to seeing what you've created, and send them in. Take care. Bye bye.